Hi guys, how is everyone doing this Sunday afternoon? I'm right here in my temporary location in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm loving it, hanging out with some old friends last night. Really enjoyed a great steak dinner. And oh geez, my phone's getting lit up here. What's going on? Okay, no problems there. You always gotta, that phone sometimes it drives me crazy. The only thing it does is notify you of fires that you've got to put out. And speaking of that, all this drama with Peter Schiff, I'm really, it's unfortunate what's happening to him right now. These clowns at 60 Minutes in Australia are really throwing him under the bus. And I've been there many times in my life, and I know exactly how they do it. I know the game they play. I actually was texting back and forth with Peter a little bit a couple hours ago, and he's going to come out with a rebuttal video very soon that's going to, of course, paint the true picture of what's going on. So I told him I'd be happy to support him in any way I can and retweet that. Maybe I'll do a whiteboard video on it. So anyway, we'll dive right into your questions. Before we get there, guys, I really want to remind you to check out Rebel Capitalist Pro. It is amazing, this online forum that I've created with my partners, Lynn Alden and Chris McIntosh. They are the best in the business. It's got all of their research information. And if you're wondering what type of information is there, I would challenge you to go check out some videos with Lynn Alden and try to find a person in the macro space that is one, smarter, or two, better researched. And that would go with Chris McIntosh as well. But they have complementary views, but they're slightly different. They specialize in different things, and that's where the magic happens. But it's all about the community, and we do live streams for the members, and actually, which I'm going to get to here in a moment. But you got to check it out. It's at georgegammon.com/pro. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's go right into your questions. Let me go up to the top. And let's see what we've got here. First question, if bank reserves are not able to chase goods and services in the economy and IOER, interest on excess reserves, is paid to the banks in reserves, then what incentive do the banks, I can't talk right now. What incentive do the banks have to sell treasuries to the Fed? Well, I don't know that the incentive they have is they can make a quick profit, because the primary, I'm assuming what you're talking about is that shell game where the primary dealer banks buy the treasuries at auction and then just flip them to the Fed. They're flipping them to the Fed at a spread. They're not doing it for free. No. Now, it's maybe just a few basis points, but they're flipping it to the Fed for a profit. So and it's obviously a guaranteed profit. So that's their incentive right there. Now, as far as when the Fed buys the treasuries, if they're not directly monetizing the debt, if they're just doing QE, then sometimes they'll buy from the banks. The Bank of England tries to specifically buy from non-bank entities, which is a much different way of doing QE. We've got to remember Richard Werner's work in the sense that he's shown that the QE that Japan did, or that they call QE, is a lot different than what the ECB did and the Bank of England and then the Fed. It's all, there's a different approach they took to it, although it gets all kind of lumped into the QE basket. So, and if they're buying from the banks, even if they're not getting them from the primary dealer banks that are the on-the-run treasuries, which are the newly released treasuries, for lack of a better term, they're still going to buy them at the market rate. So it's just kind of the open market operations, why they call it that. Okay, question, can you please spend a few words about IMF calls for Bretton Woods monetary renegotiation? Thanks a lot from Italy. Yeah, this is part of the World Economic Forum's quote-unquote Great Reset. And my buddy Simon Dixon had a great video on this. I was able to watch a few minutes of it, and I believe it's up on his YouTube channel. Simon's really big in the Bitcoin community, real smart guy. So if you're interested in cryptos, definitely check out Simon and check out that video. It was like a live video he did, but he was switching back and forth between this video that the gal did with the IMF, that's part of the World Economic Forum, and then his commentary on it. So it's neat, really cool video. So I'd suggest checking that out. But it goes back to the videos that I've done on the Great Reset, where they don't want just a new monetary system. They want a new global economic system. And if you read between the lines with everything they're saying, it's really just they want more centralized power. That's it. They want a more centralized approach to the economies, and they want to call the shots. They think they should be the ones who are determining what is right and what is wrong for every single country. The IMF comes in, they lend them money, and they give them parameters based on what the IMF thinks they should do. Is that right or wrong? Who knows? Who knows? But they like to play God, if you will. And I don't use that term loosely because because I'm a Christian and I don't like to throw that out there. You know, I was raised Christian and whatnot, but probably don't go to church enough nowadays. I should, but probably not as much as I should go more. But anyway, bottom line is that's what they like to do. They like to think that they're the ones that know everything. And they should be, and we're just these rubes, these stupid fools who are just, inbred hicks that don't know the difference between up and down, and that left to our own devices, we would just destroy the planet and everything would go up in smoke and we'd become the dinosaurs, basically. Where I have the complete opposite belief. I believe that the people that are in control are the ones that we need to be concerned with. And they cannot possibly know all the outcomes. They can't, let's say there's 100 people in control. They can't possibly have the aggregate knowledge, not even a fraction of the aggregate knowledge that the rest of the 7 billion people on the planet have that are making decisions at their local level for themselves and their own family, or maybe their own small business or mid-sized business. It's just, so anyway, it's a complete difference of opinions. And my point is, it's not just the monetary system or the monetary renegotiation. It's everything. It's the way economies work. They want to move away from what they call neoliberalism, which is just a stupid word that they created to sound derogatory. When if you look up the Investopedia definition of what neoliberalism is, you see, okay, it's this, it's this, it's this, it's this. And you're like, wait a minute. I'm waiting for the bad part because that all sounds fantastic. They're like, neoliberalism is small government. Okay, that sounds pretty good. Low taxes. Okay. Free market capitalism. Okay. A bottoms up approach to economic decisions. Okay. So where's the bad part, right? But they want to move away from that. So now, of course, they won't call themselves socialists or Marxists or anything like that. But if you want to move away from neoliberalism and you want to move towards an economy that produces fairer outcomes and needs to be micromanaged from the top, I don't care what you want to call that. That's moving closer to socialism and Marxism and communism. And this is what they want. And I think it has to do with the Cantillon effect, because they know damn well that if they crush the economy, central banks are going to come in and try to print the difference. And they're closest to the people at the central bank. So they're closest to all the money printing. So when those trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars are printed, it's got to go through the global elite's pocket first before it goes out into the rest of the economy to create price inflation or asset inflation. And I think that's what it's all about. So yeah, I've heard of it and I've done a lot of videos on it. And check out the last probably, 4 or 5 whiteboard videos I've done have some component of that in there. In fact, last weekend when I was doing a presentation at the Red Pill Expo, G. Edward Griffin was nice enough to invite me out there to speak at his conference at Jekyll Island. This is exactly what my my talk was about. It was about the whole, this monetary renegotiation, whatever you want to call it, Bretton Woods, IMF, the World Economic Forum, and how to set up your portfolio accordingly. Question, are apartments in Medellin, the first floor in Provenza and Cathay building a good investment? Juan, how on earth do you know about that? How do you know about that, Juan? Okay, you've got to be in Medellin. You have to be in Medellin. I'll just assume you're in Medellin. Yeah, the Cathay buildings are fantastic. I'm actually pretty shocked that you know those by name, because I've done projects in what they call them, the Cathay buildings. You know that Cathay numero dos, numero uno. I think they have 6 Cathay buildings, if my memory's, or maybe no, I think they've got 8 right there, right by the little exito on the corner in Provenza. So yeah, I love anything in the Cathay buildings. I think they're wonderful. Now, this is going to show you how well I know that area, because I think I know the apartment you might be talking about. Because I looked at one there on the first floor, and it was right across the street from where I've done some extensive projects. And I'm not going to name the building or anything like that, but I think I might know the apartment you're talking about, because it's on the first floor, and they were asking too much. Now, maybe they might have dropped the price. I don't know. But you just had to move around too many walls, and it was only about maybe 1,500 square feet. And that's kind of at the low end of what I like to deal with. But let me focus on your question here. Yeah, I mean, it depends on the price, really. You can way overpay and it's a horrible deal, or you can get it at a great price and it's a smoking deal. I think maybe your question is more about the area, and it's primo. You cannot get a better area than the Cathay buildings in Provenza. It's perfect, absolutely perfect. And I think the Cathay buildings are great because, as you know, they're a little older, but they're extremely well maintained. And they're walking distance to Parquearas. They're walking distance to all the restaurants that are up the hill, closer, and technically in the Provenza area. You can walk over to Click Clack. You can go down. I mean, you can even walk down to Clínica Medellin and the Golden Mile. So, man, it doesn't get any better than that as far as the location. So I think that's kind of the thrust of your question. Okay. Question, considering the political and cultural divide in the United States, do you see a balkanization as a real possibility? Daniel, it's very difficult to place probabilities on what is going to happen from a social and political standpoint in the United States. I mean, when I try to think through it, I always come back to one conclusion, is that I don't know how it's going to play out, but I'm of the opinion it's going to get worse before it gets better. And now I want to actually add a silver lining there, because I'm always talking about kind of the doom and gloom stuff, just because I always talk about the fundamentals of how I see the economy, and it's not good. So that's just what I usually talk about. But I must say one thing, in all my travels around the world, and I've been to well over 40 countries, and I've lived in a lot of countries, as most of you know, the United States does have some things going for it. It really does. As far as the infrastructure in the United States and the highway system, it's second to none that I've seen. It might be a little better in China, but I haven't spent much time in China other than just Hong Kong. And you may think to yourself, oh, okay, well, fine, that's not a big deal. When you look at the Fed, I mean, how big is a highway like I-10 going from California to Florida? It's a huge deal. It's a huge, huge, huge deal. When you have a highway system that can transport goods back and forth that quickly, it is massive. And you don't realize that until you go to a country like Colombia, where just driving 100 miles will take you 8 hours, because you're up this crazy mountain pass where you're just thinking to yourself the whole time, man, if I was driving 100 miles on I-10 or I-5, something like that, it'd take me an hour and a half max, and I'm there, probably less. And that's in the grand scheme of things, it's not just you traveling there. It's the goods and service, how or the goods really, how quickly and how efficiently they can go from one place to the other. Also, the entrepreneurs in the United States, I'd put them up against anybody. I've seen entrepreneurs all over the world, and I don't think, as far as the cream of the crop in the United States, American entrepreneurs, I think they're the best. And I'm not being biased. That's my honest opinion. So we've got some great things going for us. We just really need to wash out all the malinvestment. We need to get rid of the Fed. We need to get back to limited government. We need to get back to lower regulations. We need to get back to kind of a structure that we had, I think, in the late 1800s. And then we just need to allow human beings and these entrepreneurs and all the great technology that we have now to just continue to create more goods and services more efficiently at cheaper and cheaper prices, and just reap the benefits. Let the standard of living just continue to go up. It's not going to be a perfect system because capitalism is very imperfect. It's going to be very, very messy. There's going to be winners and losers, but we live in an imperfect world, and we are definitely imperfect creatures. So if you look around at the options, capitalism is the best we got. Free market capitalism with the emphasis on private property rights and limited government. And so that's what the United States has going for it. But unfortunately, we're doing the best we can to F it up. And we're doing that through the central banks and this money printing and all this nonsense we've been doing in increasing amounts since 2000. And I think a lot of people would argue prior to that with long-term capital management and going back to when Greenspan started. Really, it just got gradually bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger till where now it's just this monstrosity. The Fed and the government spending as a percentage of GDP. Let me make sure I just looked at your question again, Daniel. I really went off on a tangent on that one, didn't I? But I think it was a lot of pretty relevant information to what we're doing. Bottom line is, I'm not sure specifically. I'm just short term. I'm rather pessimistic about where we're going from the social divide, and that's why I encourage everyone right now that's in the United States to definitely have a plan B. And hopefully that's getting another passport, another bank account, just quick access to, you can leave the country, you can have that flexibility, or at a very minimum, just getting an RV. So if you do live in an urban area, if it hits the fan and you just want to take a couple weeks, grab your family and go to the mountains to where you can just get out of the line of fire, you always have that option. I think at the very least, that's what we should be doing. So question, talk about Peter Schiff situation. What? Yeah, listen, they just did a hit piece on Peter and his Euro Pacific Bank that he has in Puerto Rico. And I've been the target of so many of these things over my life, and obviously not many since I retired, but prior to retiring, it's just, it just almost got comical. And more recently, the BBC threw me under the bus, and not to the extent that they did with Peter, but it's just, I've been there, done that. And it's just the same old nonsense where they start the beginning of the week and they say, okay, what can we do to get ratings? And they say, oh, well, we'll create a story based on how this guy's a bad guy. And they basically storyboard it, and they just fabricate the news, and they create this narrative. And then they just try to get the clips that they need to fulfill their narrative, and they piece it all together. And when you watch it, it looks like, oh my gosh, oh geez, Peter, whoa, Peter's really done something bad, hasn't he? Oh, something nefarious. When really it's just them editing these clips together to to create a story to get you to click and to watch. And it's just total desperation on their part because they can't compete with alternative media. So the mainstream media, they're just withering on a vine, and they're just going to more and more extremes to try to get people to watch them. And you have these journalists, quote unquote, that are just like politicians in the sense that the way they do their job well is to lie as much as possible and to fabricate stories and to have no moral backbone, to have no ethical North Star, to have no belief system, to just do whatever it takes to get ratings. That's their bottom line. And just like the politician, they say whatever they need to say and do whatever they need to do to get the vote. And the journalists are going to do the exact same thing to get the eyeball. And so what they did is they just, I mean, I don't even want to encourage anyone to watch it because it's not worth your time. What you need to do is just wait for Peter's rebuttal and just listen to Peter's rebuttal. And my guess is what's happening is nowadays with FATCA and all these other crazy regulations, the banks are really required to spy on their customers. So if you don't spy enough on your customer, then all of a sudden they come at you and say, "Oh, well, you're hiding these people that could be doing X, Y, and Z." It's not that you're hiding these people. It's just that maybe you didn't make them fill out 100 forms, and maybe you're doing everything by the law, but still they want you to do more, and there's so much gray area there because it's your know your customer thing. I forgot what the acronym is. It's like K. What is that? Maybe that's the acronym. It's like KYC or something like that. And the Bitcoin guys just got in trouble with that Bitcoin exchange. Same exact thing. Well, I don't want to say it's the same exact thing because I don't know exactly what's going on with Peter. You need to get that from him, not from me. But I could tell in the first 30 seconds of watching the piece what it's all about. They're just going to get some guy on there that looks like an investigator. Maybe he is. And then they put him in all these scary looking lights. And he's talking about, showing this diagram, how you could hide $1 million. And then the tax authority couldn't find it. You'd make it difficult. And all of a sudden they show a clip of Peter and it insinuates that he's part of this flow chart, right? When they have absolutely no proof of it whatsoever. And then you say, well, why can't Peter or someone like that sue them for libel? And what you don't understand is all the networks and the news agencies, they all have insurance against that. So you want to drop $1 million on paying a lawyer because they've got $1 million insurance policy, and it's just going to be a battle in court. And then even if they do get even if you win, then they can't pay you. It's not like, what are they going to do? They don't have any money, or they don't have the money. This local little network thing doesn't have the money to sue you for damages. And then they would claim that there are no damages because see what the media will do is say, well, of course there's no damages because we put eyeballs on Peter's name. So he probably got even more clients than he otherwise would have. So there's no quantifiable damages in legal terms. So it's a racket. It's a total racket. And and unfortunately people fall victim in that they watch it, and it's the way it's edited. It makes it seem as though there's something really going on there, when at the end of the day, it's nothing. It's nothing. And again, I'm not saying that it is or it isn't. You need to make that decision on your own. But I'm talking about how the media operates. And so, they'll go so far as to ask a question of someone just to elicit a response. And I'm not kidding here. I've had this done to me many, many times, where they'll really start pushing your buttons. And when I'm talking about pushing your buttons, they'll start using profanity. They'll start talking, about your mother. I mean, the stuff that would blow your mind. You would be repulsed by the tactics they use. They sit there and swear at you, and to the point where you're like, listen, to where anyone, Mother Teresa, would get pissed off. And then, of course, they cut out everything with them provoking you and calling you every name in the book and calling your mom every name in the book. They cut all that out, of course. And then they just show you getting pissed. And then what they do after the interview is completely done, then they'll go in the studio and just tape them asking a normal question. See, then they edit in the normal question. And then right after the normal question, then they edit in a response of you getting pissed, to where it looks like you're getting pissed to the normal question. And it's all editing, guys. It's all fake news editing. So, and again, let me be clear. I'm talking about how they construct these hit pieces and how they make it look like news when it's nothing to do with news. It's just it's like it's as real as the Jerry Springer show. I mean, that's all this is it's the Jerry Springer show. And it's I mean, I wouldn't even title it fake news. I wouldn't even give it that much credit because you're using the word news. So I'm telling you how it works from the media standpoint, how they manipulate you. Now, as far as actually what they're accusing Peter of, or they, and I'm not talking about the news. Forget about the news. Just if there are authorities involved or what's going on, I would assume that it's just that Peter hasn't spied on his customers enough. And should we be concerned with that? I mean, think about that. Do you want your bank spying on you more? No. We want more personal privacy. We want more personal liberty. We don't want less. And if you can sit there and say, oh, well, we need to catch the bad guys. Okay, well, fine. We'll catch at what price, as Thomas Sowell would say, right? There's no solutions. There are only trade-offs. So if we have to catch one more bad guy at the sake of a billion people's personal privacy, I'd rather let the bad guy go. You got to do that cost benefit analysis, right? And listen, at what point did we make it the responsibility of the bank to make sure that their customers aren't doing anything wrong? Why is that the bank's problem, right? I mean, think about that. You go into McDonald's and you use a counterfeit 20 or something like that. And obviously, McDonald's, let's say they don't notice it and they take it. And should McDonald's be prosecuted for someone coming in and using a fake 20? I mean, what are you talking about? It doesn't make any sense. And the bank shouldn't either. Here's what this boils down to. And this is when I really start to get pissed off. It really gets under my skin. Here's the bottom line, is these politicians and these central planners have spent so much money, and they're trying to micromanage the system so much that they need to grab taxes from everywhere, and they need to squeeze as much blood out of the turnip as they possibly can, because they've bought so many votes that they've blown their load on buying all these votes. They've mortgaged your future, your children's future, and your grandchildren's future, buying all of these votes in the present and past. That now they've got to get that blood out of the turnip, and they need all of these resources to do it. Well, the problem is they don't have the budget to expand the IRS by 10 times to try to just go to everyone's house, knock on their door like biblical times, and just try to take whatever they can, right? And obviously that's not going to buy them any more votes. That's not going to make them any more popular, so they can't do that. Oh, so I know what we'll do. What we'll do is we'll just make the banks spy on everyone for us. We'll just make the banks an extension of the IRS. And then we don't have to pay them. And then if anyone gets pissed, then the banks are the bad guy. We aren't. And that's the game they're playing. That's what's going on here. And then if you get a bank that says, listen, no, we don't want to play by your rules, now all of a sudden they're the ones that are embedding criminals. And again, I'm not saying that's what's going on here, but that would be my guess. and so it's just, and another thing you notice in that piece, they talk about all that, they insinuate that Peter is charging all of these fees for, banking with him, and how that's just, and no one would be willing to pay these fees if they weren't doing something nefarious. Because why wouldn't you just use a good old fashioned bank in Australia? It's what they call a safe bank in Australia, in the jurisdiction. So obviously the only reason someone would be willing to pay those fees is if they're doing something wrong, right? But then they don't tell you that Peter's bank is a full reserve bank. They don't use fractional reserve banking. So if they're not using fractional reserve banking, that's why the fees are higher, because that's the only way that they can pay the bills. But what they don't tell you is that it's a full reserve bank, and therefore 10 times safer than any fractional reserve bank in Australia. I can tell you that, especially with their massive housing bubble with all those bad loans on their books. I mean, it's just utter nonsense, just crazy, crazy, crazy. So anyway, that's enough for that. That's my rant for the day. But just make sure that when you're watching stuff like that, you're scrutinizing it with a fine-tooth comb, realizing that they're trying to manipulate you with the edit. It's all the edit. In fact, you know what I should do one time is I should take something like this 60-minute thing, and I should have my editors download it from YouTube, and I should have them edit it a different way with the exact same content, but just with a different edit. And then I should replay that and let you guys see how easy it is to manipulate the viewer with the edit. It's just, you guys think that, I'm not going to keep going, but just make sure that you realize that you're being manipulated with the edit. See right through that so you can understand the nonsense. And then wait for Peter to come out with his podcast or on his YouTube video in the next couple of days about his rebuttal. And once you hear both sides of the story, I'm sure it'll all make sense. And in the interim, let's continue to support Peter. And, you know, they were talking bad about him and his father. And that's when I really get pissed. I mean, when I first started this channel, you guys know that I really had a thing for Dave Ramsey. I mean, I'm nice to everyone. And I'm, you know, even people that kind of make fun of me or whatever, I don't really say anything bad, you know, whatever. It's just water off the duck's back. But the one person that I was pretty hard on has been Dave Ramsey. And the reason is because back in 2007 and 2008, Dave Ramsey was really hard on Irwin Schiff, Peter's dad. And I never forgave him for that. The stuff he said about Peter's dad, it made my blood boil. It pissed me off so badly. And I never, ever forgot about that. And it's just, you know, you can say anything you want about me or Peter or whatever. You start talking smack about Peter's dad, I mean, if you know the story of what he did and what he went through and how he died, you just got to have an incredible amount of respect for that. So once you start going in that direction, you're going to piss me off real quick. But anyway, well, let's keep going here. I don't want to make the whole live stream about that. Let's support Peter in the interim. Whether you like his stance on Bitcoin or gold, who cares? You know, he's about personal liberty, small government, and hard money, and that's something we should all stand for and support. Okay, Sean asks, where in Asia would you consider to buy real estate, possibly also live and start a business? Thanks. Boy, you know, Macintosh has done a lot of research on this. I know he really likes Thailand, Sean. And I've done a lot more boots on the ground research in South America than I have in Asia, although I've spent a lot of time in Hong Kong and Singapore. But I don't know if those are I mean, I like those places, but I don't know if those are where the real opportunities are. I think kind of the more developing markets. I mean, it depends on what it depends on what your objectives are. I mean, what I would do is I would first go to Myanmar. I would check out Myanmar. And I don't know about real estate there. I don't think they'll let an American own, or who knows, we might not be allowed to by our government. And I know that's what gets a little sticky in Asia, is it's a little tougher to own a real estate than it is in like South America, where it's pretty much just wide open, like North America, anyone could buy it. But as far as a business, I think that it's a lot easier or very doable to buy a business and start a business. And I think there could be huge opportunities there. I mean, China has a lot of problems in the near term, but over the next 30, 40 years, I mean, their economy is probably going to expand. And I like the Middle East quite a bit. And then you've got that dynamic of the Middle East trading with China and Russia. Russia's got a fantastic balance sheet. I'm not saying they don't have problems, but they got a great balance sheet. I mean, there's no place that's perfect by any stretch, but I think that there's a lot of opportunities there that you could that you could exploit. And I think they're not the ones that are headed down the path of Marxism. They're not the ones that are getting closer to Marxism. They're not the ones who are condemning neoliberalism. They're trying to get closer to that. It's the West that's trying to get further away from it. So I like to look at the trajectory of where an area is going, not necessarily where it is now. Like Wayne Gretzky said, you always want to skate to where the puck is going, not where it is. Right? So I think, having said that, there's going to be a lot of opportunity there. So I think it's interesting. Although it's country to country, there's a lot of there's some in there that I might not like as much as others, and for that I would, if you're a member of Rebel Capitalist Pro, definitely check out Chris's research on that, because he's done a lot of deep dives. And if you're not, check him out on Twitter, because I'm sure he posts writing on it and whatnot. Oh, and then keep in mind, Sean, as soon as I'm done with Phoenix, I'll be going to Dubai most likely, and because I'll be looking at real estate. And from Dubai, I'll probably take quite a few trips to Asia, and so I'll be doing content on that. So just stay tuned there. A question: with high inflation on the horizon, wouldn't you still agree that there is going to be delivering an overvalued stock market in U.S. real estate? No, not really. Look at Venezuela, right? There was really high inflation there, but it didn't necessarily mean that you wanted to be in the stock market, because in real terms, you got your butt handed to you. Even though the stock market went up, whatever, 1,000 times, 1,000,000% or whatever, you still lost purchasing power because the currency inflated away at a faster rate. And also, let's not forget the 1970s. Everyone remembers the 1970s for high inflation and stagflation. And that's good. But they forget that in 1972 to 1974, we had a huge bear market in stocks. So stocks went down by over 50%. So if stocks go down by 50% from 72 to 74, when we had, let's say, 8% consumer price inflation. Just because we have inflation doesn't necessarily mean that we have asset inflation. And vice versa. We could have asset inflation without much consumer price inflation. Look at the last 10 years would be a good example. So the problem, Mike, is people like to look at inflation and deflation as though it's black and white. So if we have inflation, that means consumer prices go up, that means assets go up, and that means the dollar goes down on the DXY. But if you look at a chart of the DXY, the S&P, and consumer prices, you'll see that there's very little correlation. There's no correlation whatsoever. They'll be going opposite directions. They're all over the place. Sometimes they'll be in line. Sometimes, it's all over the map. So the rule is that there is no correlation, rather than they're all correlated together. So when you think about inflation and deflation, it's a very nuanced argument. It should be a very nuanced thought process. It's not just this, well, if we get inflation, boom, this happens. If we get deflation, then boom, this happens. It doesn't work that way. And even if we do get inflation, like my first point, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're increasing your purchasing power if you own the assets that are going up in price, because their nominal price could be going up at a slower rate than the rate of inflation. Let's look at one quick example before I move on here. Let's say you buy a house for $100,000 and it goes up to $110,000. So it went up by 10%. But the rate of inflation during the same time was 20%. So did you make money or lose money? See, you might have made money, but you lost purchasing power. And at the end of the day, the money doesn't matter. It's the purchasing power. It's just like that example I always use. And when I'm in Medellin, I got them in my back pocket. But, I pull up a bill, a 50,000 peso bill. right? Well, that would mean that you got a lot of money. You got 50,000 pesos. Yeah, but it'll only buy you lunch. See? So it's not the amount of money you have. It's about how many goods and services the money that you do have will buy. And we got to remember that. So Josh asks, at what point do we assume that we are living in communism when the only way many companies can survive or even provide jobs is a direct result of government debt? Yeah, I mean, it's a great point, Josh. I don't know if I'd consider that communism, maybe more fascism, but and not to, I'm not using that in the SJW way. You know, they think that, oh my goodness, any white straight male is a fascist or racist or misogynist or whatever. I'm saying when you look at the definition of fascism from a standpoint of there's still private property rights, but the businesses are pretty much controlled by the government, although the businesses are owned by the private sector. That's how I look at fascism first and foremost, and that's what I'm referring to. And if you look at the United States, that's pretty much what we got. I mean, at the end of the day, the government's calling the shots, and I think that they're going to make it more and more draconian to where the Fed is going to keep propping things up. It's going to need more stimulus and more stimulus. The economy is a heroin addict. I mean, Schiff, that's the best example he's ever given. I mean, he gives some great examples and analogies, but that's one of the best. You've got to look at the economy as a heroin addict, and that you can't just go cold turkey off the heroin. You've got to have more and more and more and more. And the only thing that you know is going to happen with a heroin addict is that every time they shoot up or whatever the hell they do, in order to get that same level of high, the next time they're going to have to shoot up more and more and more. And our economy is the exact same way with quantitative easing and government intervention and stimulus and fiscal spending and everything else, artificially low interest rates. So that means that there's going to be more and more and more government involvement in the operations of the private sector and in corporate America. And if the government runs half the board, who cares if they have shareholders? They're still calling the shots. And I would argue right now with the banking system, there's no differentiation whatsoever between B of A and Wells Fargo and Chase. They're all just one. They're all one and the same. And they're all run by the government. Well, they're not run by the government. They're run by private entities, but they're controlled by the government. And the rules are so draconian that there is no difference between them other than just the name and the color of their logo. And I think, unfortunately, we could be going in the direction where it's not just the banks that are so heavily regulated that they're basically controlled by the government, but most of the private sector. And then that's fascism. And then really, what's the next step between the government really, although they might not own the means of production, they control the means of production. Is there any difference to that? Probably not. What do I think of Anthony Deaton? You're talking about the one that Anthony Deaton, as in the gentleman that lives in Switzerland that Grant Williams interviewed. Fantastic, man. He is awesome. That was one of the best. Okay, so we started talking about the worst form of journalism. Let's talk about the best, and that's Grant Williams and what he did with Real Vision. That is just, I mean, that's a great example of just amazing content. And yeah, if you haven't had the chance to watch that interview with Grant Williams and Tony Deaton, if that's one you're referring to, definitely check it out. One of my all-time favorites. I mean, he's really, I love the way he thinks. Just his framework is awesome. As far as LIBOR or was it SOFR? I don't know. SOFR Transition is going this weekend for a Monday market open. Yeah, I don't know that that's a huge deal. I'd defer to Snyder on that one. Snyder's going to be the guy to ask. But I don't know if he's addressed that recently with Emil on their podcast, Making Sense. And if you haven't listened to that one, make sure you do. But I don't know that that would be a big shift. It's not like the repo market spike going to 10% or the Fed announcing QE infinity or something like that. I don't know that it matters that much. I mean, the euro dollar system is broken, and I think that's what matters even more. I think this is kind of just rearranging the chairs on the Titanic type thing. But maybe I'm not. Maybe I haven't studied the full scope of it. So check out Snyder's stuff on that. I'm sure. Or you know what I do is I type in Jeff Snyder and LIBOR and SOFR into Google and see what he's written on that topic on his blog at Alhambra Investments. That's what I would do personally. In fact, I might do that after the live stream. That would be interesting. What is my opinion on Gavin Newsom's new California law that only nonprofits can pick up distressed properties, no corporations? Have you heard anything about this? No. No, I haven't, but it's just more nonsense. It's just so see. Here's why I get so frustrated with this stuff, because the politicians, let's just assume they had good intentions, which they don't. They don't. It's just pandering. It's just pandering to their voting base and their constituents. It just makes me ill, because they're just lying to your face and they're just saying what they think you want to hear, so you'll vote for them. It's disgusting. But let's assume for a moment they had good intentions. But the mistake they always make is that they assume that the intention of the law is going to be the result when it's actually put into practice. And it never is. Because the private sector, I mean, listen, if you just told me that as a real estate investor, I'd just say, okay, well, guess I need to start a 501(c). Done. Nonprofit. And oh, by the way, the 501(c) is going to pay me $1 million a year. And if they don't pay me that because we don't make enough money, then they'll owe it to me. And so when we do make it, they'll have to pay me. And everything gets just in, bam, we're a nonprofit. It's stupidity. It's utter stupidity. And it's going to create just people working the system. It's going to create malinvestment. It's going to create a misallocation of resources in the form of human capital, where now there's going to be so many people that are applying for nonprofits that it's going to take all that government's going to create more tax. I mean, it's just nonsense. It's a boondoggle, and it's just going to benefit a small minority of people. There's going to be tons of unintended consequences, and it's going to make things far worse. Why would you even do that? I mean, even that proposal in and of itself is so naive, to think that for some reason, if a nonprofit buys a distressed asset, that it's going to be somehow better than a corporation, as if the nonprofit can't distribute profits. I mean, what are you talking about? A nonprofit can pay their employees, and the person who sets up the nonprofit can pay themselves a salary. And okay, whether you want to call it a salary or profit, whatever, it's just calling the exact same thing something different to make yourself feel good. It's just crazy. And then do we want nonprofits? Like, let's say this actually panned out. Do we really want nonprofits taking over distressed properties? I mean, you're making quite a mental leap there and assuming that the nonprofit is going to understand the highest use case for that distressed property. My guess is they probably don't. You want to leave that up to the pros, right? And how are the pros going to make the decision? They're going to make the decision based on the demand of the local economy. That means the consumers. That means average Joes and Janes, just like you and I. We're going to make the decision. And isn't that better than some nonprofit who may or may not know what the heck they're doing? And the only reason they were gifted this distressed property is just because they happen to be in the good favors of the politician that wanted to buy the votes? Is that any way to run an economy efficiently? What do we? I get so frustrated with this. But that's, the great thing about it is that's why I started, well, not the main reason, but that's one of the reasons why I started the YouTube channel. And that's one of the reasons I enjoy it so much, is because it allows me to vent my frustrations through the whiteboard videos. And a lot of times those whiteboard videos are me just coming up with an argument and just trying to prove my argument or whatever. Maybe it's even someone's argument that I disagree with, but I'm trying to outline it, go over rebuttals and all that stuff. So anyway. Oh, here's one. Okay, good. I always like taking younger guys and gals. So Josh says, I'm a senior in high school and I'm not sure where to go after I have run 2 semi-successful businesses, and I'm not sure if college is right or not. By the way, love your videos. I wouldn't go to college, Josh. And let me preface by saying, if you want to be a doctor, an engineer, a lawyer, go to college. But if you're just going to college to go to college just because you think that's the right thing to do, when really you just want to be an entrepreneur, or you want to be in PR, you want to be in marketing, you want to be in pretty much every single job other than those 3 I mentioned, college it's not going to be a good use of your time. And it's going to be, I think, more of a burden than anything else, when you could take that same time and energy and allocate it to understanding the business world. But listen, let me put it to you this way. I've almost flunked out of high school, as most of you know. And although I did get through high school and I went on to college, I was just as bad when I went to college. But, I was a horrible student. And I think my GPA my senior year in high school was like a 0.5. I think I had 2 D's and 2 F's. And that was my report card. So my point is this. As most of you know, that I was a self-made millionaire by the time I was 34. I've never been given a penny in my life. Never. Not one. I made that from scratch. I didn't have any help with that from my family or anything like that. Obviously, I had great parents, but financially, I wasn't given a thing. And I had to do it from scratch, obviously. And then I retired at the age of 38. And I've traveled since. I've been investing in real estate. I've been kind of going all over the world. I've been, doing TV shows now with this YouTube channel. I've been pretty much kind of living the dream, if you will. And I can say with 100% certainty that I've never, ever in my life used anything that I learned outside of maybe 4th grade, something like that. Nothing. The only thing I ever used is basic reading skills, basic math skills, and that's about it. And basic writing skills. I mean, I'm a horrible writer. I'm terrible. And so basically I used what I learned up until 4th grade, and everything else was a big waste of time. And so if 5th and 6th and 7th grade was a waste of time for me, just think how big of a waste of time college was. The only good thing I will say about college is you meet the friends in college, typically the great guys and gals that you're going to be close with for the rest of your life. And that's, I think, a huge benefit. But, nowadays on the internet, there's a lot of social opportunities to meet the same types of people and surround yourself with winners, because you're always going to be the average of the 5 people you surround yourself by. And that's such a powerful statement, and it is so true. So I think that's the best advice. I mean, congratulations on being young and already starting to even semi-successful businesses. That you're off to the right start, and you're going to have a really bright future ahead of you. You know, on the channel, we talk about how bad things are fundamentally from an economic standpoint, which is very true. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's very few opportunities out there. There's a ton of opportunities now that I never had with the internet and social media. And it's a very exciting time. Although you need to be cognizant of the problems we have in the world, that's for sure. You don't want to whistle by the graveyard. But it doesn't mean that it's all bad. I mean, there's some really neat things happening. And that's why I try to every once in a while do an interview with like a digital marketing person or an entrepreneur. Just Friday night, I did that interview with my good buddy, Eric Sue, who is, kind of went through his red pill moment from an economic standpoint. Now he's moving to Puerto Rico, but he's a wildly successful entrepreneur. And you can just learn so much from individuals like that. And he's just proof that there's such a great opportunity. I mean, he's a young guy and he's made a fortune in his life. And I don't know that he went to college. Maybe, I don't know his educational background, but I think he'd be the first to admit that the millions of dollars that he has made, none of it was a result of anything that he learned past fourth grade. So there you go. Okay, Harvey is asking, oh, let me check the time here. Okay, let's see, I've been going 56 minutes. Okay, let me answer a couple more questions here. So what effect will the new Fed coin? Oh, and by the way, I've forgotten the last couple of days to thank the people that do I know they're not super chats, but these little stickers here. And I there was some up there and now they're all gone. And if you, wait a minute, let me click on this one. PT gave me a super sticker, and I know that some others flashed up here, and I don't know how to click on them. But if you sent one of those super stickers, thank you very much. I mean, it's really a nice gesture, and it goes. I use everything. In fact, just so you guys know, all the money that I make from YouTube, pretty much 100% of it goes to payroll. So this is going straight to people in Colombia that work for me, and many of those people in Colombia, by the way, are fled Venezuela. So, and I'm not saying this so you donate more. I mean, you don't have to do that, but I'm just FYI, even the ad revenue that I get from the channel, which, is pretty decent now. Almost all of that goes to payroll. So everything that I do and all the support you guys give me, whether it's with these stickers or just even watching my videos, I mean, that's huge. That's huge. Just the time that you guys take out of your schedule to watch my videos. I mean, I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. Not just me, but everyone on my team. Sebastian, Adriana, Jean, Thomas, Danny, Catherine, Maria, Anna. I mean, we all just, I'm sure I'm forgetting someone there. I apologize. Kayla. We all really appreciate it. But my point is that that's one neat thing about this YouTube channel is that the proceeds, almost all of it, directly from what I make on YouTube specifically, not the website or anything, but from YouTube, goes to pay people. And a lot of those people are refugees of the hyperinflation that they had in Venezuela. So I wanted to make sure that everyone, I thank everyone, and I really do appreciate those things. Okay, so now let me get to this question that Harvey had. What effect will the new Fed coin have on the existing cryptocurrencies? Also, do you think they will try to outlaw use of Bitcoin, for example? Yeah, I think they will. I wish they wouldn't. I mean, obviously, I'm a big fan of a decentralized currency. That's for sure, a way of transacting. But I unfortunately, I think it's one of those things that the more success Bitcoin has, the more likely it is that they'll ban it or try to ban it. Now, hopefully they can't. And I know that there's a lot of smart people that are working on that ecosystem. And who knows, maybe they can figure out a way that we can use it and we don't have to worry about big government. And we don't have to worry about that. But right now, if everything stays the way it is with the technology, I think that the bigger Bitcoin gets, the more it's going to have a target on its back. Just like Schiff. Schiff's a great example of that. So once you get enough success and they don't like your message, you got a big target on your back. That's for sure. So I think they'll try to outlaw it, although I hope I'm wrong. And if they do that with Bitcoin, I mean, I think it'll pretty much be every cryptocurrency. I think they'll just make it mandatory that you use FedCoin. And they'll say, of course, they'll spin it and they'll edit everything just like 60 Minutes is to make it look like the only people that wouldn't want us to go to a complete FedCoin system are criminals. That's it. Why on earth would you not want us to go to a FedCoin? You must be a criminal. That's how they're gonna spin it, right? And 99% of the sheeple out there, the lemmings, the people that are just, have the spirals in their eyes and like, government, yes, tell me, everyone, it's like 99% of the people out there just want the government to do all the thinking for them. They want to subcontract out their thinking to the government. Well, the government can think for me. And if they can think for me, then I don't have to think for myself. And I can just go back to watching football and drinking beer and taking my kids to their soccer practice. And then I never have to worry about it because the government's doing all the thinking for me. Right? They're keeping me safe. And I'm happy to give up however much freedom I need to give up in return for that feeling of safety that I have from the government, when really it's as we all know, it's the complete opposite of that. So that's in my opinion, that's how they're going to spin it. And I think unfortunately, I think it's really a when question and not an if question, like Rick Rule says. And hopefully it's another 20 years out. Let's keep our fingers crossed, right? Okay, we'll take another question here. Okay, I am KMT says, as I take a swig of my stiff drink. Yes, stiff drink time. Oh, that's for sure. This live stream was definitely stiff drink time. Says, what are your views on the market, both long and short-term views with Trump and Biden? I think whatever happens, the market's going to spin it to be pro-market. It's bullish. Right. So if Trump wins, that's bullish because now we don't have to worry about corporate taxes increasing. And if Biden wins, they're going to say, that's bullish because now we're going to get stimulus. So and pick your poison. They're going to find it. The market is going to find an excuse to try to continue inflating the bubble. So that's my thoughts there. All right. And Sean, I already answered this question, buddy. So I don't know if I'm getting mixed up here, but Sean Regan, I've answered that question. If you didn't hear me answer the question, maybe you're hopping, you got something to do over the last half hours. I don't know, maybe you went on the live stream then off. Just watch the preview or the when it goes live on my YouTube channel, and I answered the question there. All right, guys. So as a final reminder, I want to encourage all of you to check out Rebel Capitalist Pro right here. And that's the online forum I have with Lynn Alden and Chris McIntosh. It's a fantastic way to take your investing to the next level. That's where we explore things and opportunities all over the globe where we could get stuff that's cheap and sell stuff that's expensive. And we kind of take that Austrian approach to everything. So check it out at georgegammon.com/pro. And as usual, I want to thank everyone for being on the live stream all the way to the end. I'm going to go to the bottom of my comments And yeah, wow, we still have almost 1,100 people on the live stream. Thank you very much. So we got Jim Wolf. Thank you for staying on to the end, my friend. We got Jerry, Brendan, Butchie, Eric, Victoria, Rigo, Kelly. Oh, and by the way, Victoria, I think, oh, there she is. Yeah, Victoria, I think you're the person that had a lot of nice things to say about me when Greg posted that we were going to be doing an interview on Monday. And I think you went in that thread on Twitter and had a lot of nice things to say. So thank you very much for saying those nice things. Okay, Lily, Seymour, Silver, M, Simon, AR, Philip, Attila, let's see, I think Ralph, Balin, PT, Benoit, Arthur. Arthur, I'll see you in an hour, buddy, on the live stream. We'll see you and everyone else there. Oh, shoot, it skipped on me. Mike, Wind, Bill, the history person, Terry, Mateo, Zach, Zarina, Nicholas, AR7, Mr. Rike, Boris, Michael, Unity Being, Zarina, Chap, Kel, M. Bellinger, in 3 simple fast steps. Yeah, Pink Poodle, Anomalia, Silver Liner, Mateo, Identity Block. Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you very much for hanging out on the live stream. And I will see you on the next video. And make sure you support Peter Schiff and check out his rebuttal to this nonsense thing that 60 Minutes in Australia did. See you in the next video.